Hey there and welcome back. It's said what's measured improves, and with communities, this is especially true. But coming up with ways to measure the overall performance of your learning community can be hard to get your head around. Communities solve a lot of problems for you and your members. For example, a community helps answer customer questions faster, it deepens learning, and it helps create superfans that will buy more from you. So it's important to know what the goals of your community are before starting to measure anything. It's also important to remember that you should have at least 2 months of activity in your community before starting to measure. You'll need your community to have some action in it first to have any kind of impact and to provide you a baseline of metrics to work with. Now, when it comes to measuring your community's performance, there's typically 3 major categories of metrics that we suggest you take a look at. The first is around growth. You should be tracking your community growth by measuring how many new members are joining in a given period of time on average. It's interesting to note when growth is spiking or declining and what other factors in your business might be influencing this. It's also important to note that in the beginning, you shouldn't consider your community a failure if you're not earning thousands of members. In the beginning, it's all about quality over quantity. 5 super engaged members are much better to have than 500 inactive members. And that brings us to our second metric, which is around engagement. You should keep track of the number of posts, comments, and likes or reactions that are occurring in your community in a given time period. That number alone won't mean much to you unless you divide it by the number of active members in your community. At that point, you'll have your engagement rate, and this will give you a better understanding of your community's health. Every community is different when it comes to engagement rates, but typically a rate of 20% or higher is really great. Now, the third metric we suggest you look at is the quality of interactions in your community. This one is really subjective, so use your judgment here, but if you're running a learning community, we're willing to bet that you care if students are discussing what you teach or not. You should pay attention to how many interactions are related to course content versus those that aren't. This will tell you how focused your community is on learning. And we're not saying unrelated conversations shouldn't be allowed, but if they're the majority of posts, it might be time to reevaluate how you're running your learning community. Now, when it comes to actually measuring these metrics, depending on where you are with your community already, we don't recommend diving into complicated measurement tools right away. If you can keep track of this yourself with a simple spreadsheet or just by taking a glance through the community as you engage with members, that's good to get started with. If you're further along and ready to upgrade your measuring capabilities, we're going to link some tools down below for you to use here. Either way, it's a good idea to review these numbers in a broader context of your business and in combination with the responses you get from students from the questions and surveys we talked about in the last lesson. That way you'll get a clearer picture of what you should do to improve your community, which we'll expand on in the next lesson.